Hello there. It's 6:31 p.m. Monday the 30th of March 2026, and I'm happy to be done for the day, my dude. When the dawn is downed, the day is done. I don't have a lot of confidence in this IPA because I don't really like juicy IPAs, but it's from Devil's Backbone, which is a cool trail that's located off, or a cool brewery that's located directly off the Appalachian Trail, so, I can't resist that. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, it's not bad. It's a Heavenly Trip Juicy IPA. Hoppy, juicy, and tropical notes. Yeah, I don't really know why a lot of IPAs have gone toward being tropical. To me, they kind of sometimes taste like sour beers a little bit. And let me try this a little bit more. Let's see if that's notes of sourness on it. Yeah, it's not offensive. That's for sure. Also, I guess the juicy IPAs tend to have like an absurd amount of alcohol. This one thankfully only has 7%, which is quite reasonable for a solo evening. But yeah, I saw one today. It was like the newest iteration of the New Belgium Juice Force that has 11% alcohol per volume. And that's insane. Now, again, when your beer is starting to get into wine territory, in fact, I've had wine out here. I think Liberty Creek, is also 11%. So, yeah, man, that's crazy. That's that's on a different level completely. I gotta say, this is a very nice place to be, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much. I'm awake, and I do want to be here. When I was a kid, this is a funny story. Shout out to my parents, but I just remembered it, so I don't feel like I have much to say. We'll see if 2 beers can convince me otherwise. But in my family, we have this funny period of my personal life that we refer to as the dark years, which I think is a matter of degree and opinion. But yeah, there was a period of time when I was in middle school where I was a bit of a troublemaker. I was really just a smart aleck, and I guess this was me kind of pushing the boundaries of like where it was socially acceptable to be rebellious versus developing my own individuality. I mean, honestly, especially given the results and the eventualities of it all, I think it was probably a very healthy way for me to determine limits and boundaries by pushing on them, Thankfully, shout out to my parents, I had a good support system, so I never really got too far in the weeds of like being in trouble. I was never expelled. I was never put on what they call an action plan, which is like the predecessor to expulsion, where they would tell you, the staff and everything else, they would have to like create this very contrived document that you would send, or that you'd have to sign. And then I guess you had to follow whatever the prescription of that document was. And if you altered from it because you had agreed to it, then severe consequences could be levied against you. I had a friend, shout out to my dude Jake, great musician, great friend, one of my oldest friends, if not the oldest friend that I have. He was not so lucky. He certainly was someone who, by his own definitions, was targeted. And I don't know if he quit school himself or if he was actually expelled, but he left high school in 10th grade. I did not meet that same fate. But in middle school, there was a period where I remember we would have a couple of parent-teacher conferences, which, just thinking about the logistics of the ones that I recall, which occurred before school started. So in my mind, we had to be there at like, I don't even know, 6 a.m. or something like that. Mom and Dad, you probably have a better idea. But yeah, Had to be there ridiculously early. And the only things that I remember from that were that the administrators were basically threatening me and saying that, like, if my behavior continued to be disruptive, that it would eventually be difficult for me to get a driver's license. I'm not sure how that was true. I've never heard of anyone. I mean, I'm sure it's possible if you had some level of delinquency or degenerativeness, that, like, the school could inform the government that you should not be given a driver's license. But I've never heard of that happening to anybody. And it seems like those two things would be necessarily separate, you know, like if you're causing trouble at school, that might mean, that wouldn't necessarily mean that you being able to drive would be a bad thing. And also, if I think about all the people who are bad people, I never noticed that there was a disproportionate number of them that seemed to have not been able to get a driver's license. So I don't, that seemed like a hollow threat. But at a critical moment during that whole conversation, and this has become lore in the Pereiro family, at least for my parents and myself. I remember that the principal, or the vice principal's name was Mr. Virgilio, and so you can imagine all of the nicknames we had for that gentleman. But yeah, he asked, or somebody asked, he was there for sure. They asked what I thought about everything that we had been discussing, and the points of threat, and also, like, you know, just trying to acknowledge that I was, like, following along with everything that was being discussed. And so they said, you know, what do you think? And I was like, I'm tired and I don't want to be here. I guess that was about as witty as I could get at the moment. And so that, to me, Mom and Dad, perhaps you could regale me. Again, I have a email address, bookofmoronpodcast@gmail.com. You guys could send me something. I don't remember a lot about that era of my life. But yeah, if there's any details I'm not including, let me know. I'd love to relive my own life. But yeah, those were the dark days, the dark years. And again, I think that, relatively speaking, my parents kind of got off easy, but, you know, trauma is relative. That's another thing Paul Conti talks about. And I think I've brought this up before, but yeah, trauma is as simple as simply going through some sort of experience that you don't have the tools to manage. And I think I've talked about this maybe even on the bike ride, so you'll have to forgive me or not. But yeah, as soon as I realized that trauma was actually not reserved for people who were being actively abused by their environment and the people within it, and that it was actually just a human response to being unprepared for life's influence on your life, the chaos or whatever, it opened up a huge door of empathy for me, because I was like, okay, like, first of all, people aren't lying when they report, like, their experience, their lived experience. They might be filtering it, but, you know, there is there. Like, when someone is saying something, and this is kind of like one of the exercises I generally do with myself, where I'm trying to, like, you know, distill the kernel of truth through my own bull squish, you know, so that I can kind of, like, understand what I'm trying to say either to myself or to someone else. I feel like I haven't had, like, a lot of, in the last 30 days, it's been mostly reflective for me. I've spent most of my time by myself, and that's fine, you know. I can certainly enjoy my own company. I do have the tools and the fortitude and the, I was going to say resilience, but I feel like that's a little too self-congratulatory, because it's not like it's hard to be by myself, you know. Sometimes are harder than others, like if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. I don't spend a lot of time in the angry bucket, but that is the acronym that I learned in college, where if you are feeling a certain type of negative feeling, you should examine yourself and you should halt, which means you should see if you are hungry, H, angry, A, lonely, L, or tired, T. And if any of those things can explain your mood, whatever kind of catastrophizing you might be going through is probably an artificial reaction. It's basically the fundamental attribution error, which is another thing. I guess I'm just going through my whole Rolodex of psychological terms, which is fun enough because I didn't know what else I was going to say. So, hey, I'm happy. But yeah, the fundamental attribution error is another important thing for me, which is like, basically, to put it simply, the human mind desires an explanation for things, and we will create an explanation to our own satisfaction, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we are actually categorizing what is occurring in a objectively true way. You are fundamentally attributing something to something erroneously, But for you, for us, for me, for I, it's a good enough explanation to where you're satisfied and you can basically, I guess, exist within that disambiguity that you've created for yourself. Boy, I'm excited to go to Devil's Backbone, where this beer was born. That's one of my favorite places on the trail. It's right off of the Blue Ridge Parkway, so it's a special little treat. And I was thinking about it today since I got this beer, and I was thinking, that might be the first time that I actually hitch. I could be way wrong about that, because that's still 250 plus miles ahead of where I am. So a lot of things can happen, but yeah, you do have to go down from the trail pretty far. In 2022, my friend Birdman, shout out to Birdman, who also joined me for the 4-state challenge. Shout out to Birdman again. Very cool dude. Very much so enjoyed. That was like the closest to having a trail family that probably had for the entire 2022 experience. Like, he and I were good buddies for a little bit, and certainly enjoyed a few carbonated recovery beverages together and some deep philosophical musings. He was a pretty devout Christian, and I really enjoyed and respected his perspective on life and his experiences thereof, and therein, my dude. But yeah, he walked all the way from the trail to Devil's Backbone, so it's definitely doable. And honestly, if there's a road down there, which there is, and it's parallel to the trail, which it probably is, and that parallel road goes through towns, we'll have to just wait and see. Certainly a wait and see situation. I really have been enjoying, I know I've already mentioned this a million times, but I really have been enjoying doing something a little different on this go-round. And, it's not for lack of belief that I want to keep enforcing that. It's like, it's just, it's a celebration of the fact that, I like that I can do this for a third time, and, asterisk after do this, but to do it in a way that just opens up things a little bit more differently and exposes me to things that I haven't seen before. Experiences are important in life. I'm a digital hoarder. I'm a hoarder of experiences. Experiences are immaterial things, and to me, they hold great value and are certainly worth exploring, even if at their fundamental core they are simply me moving 20 miles at a time through space. But today felt like a little bit of a treat, if I'm honest. I still feel tired, I think, from 2 days ago, and I think that this zero that I have planned in Harrisburg is going to be, I think it's going to hit the spot. I didn't sleep well. It's funny. I was making comparisons when I was walking. I was like, what was that campsite like? The Chestnut Knob at 4,400 or 4,600 feet. It was like a really, really awesome place that, if you took a picture of it like I did, it's very, very picturesque. But it's sort of like that expectation versus reality. Like, the actual reality of staying there was pure misery. It was kind of like dating someone who was a 10 out of 10, like a smoke show, and then realizing that underneath their veneer, they're actually just a flaming dumpster fire. That's what it was like for me to sleep and stay at a Chestnut Knob. There's actually mosquitoes out right now, which they're harbingers of warmer times, so it's a bittersweet experience to share space with them. But I just did not sleep very well that night, just because I was basically freezing to death. And I'm excited to be done for the day here because the sun is still out. I didn't do an incredibly crazy amount of miles today. I think it was like 22 or something like that. How many miles did I actually do? Can Strava tell the tale? 22.4. So yeah, nothing to break the bank per se, but certainly not nothing also. And it felt like a treat to stop I basically got here at 6 p.m. And so I was able to set up my camp, my tent, all my stuff, and then I found a nice log to sit on and to podcast from, and the rest is just kismet, my dude. So what else is there to say about my day? Let me think. I made that clip, which I wasn't honestly satisfied with. I just felt like I wanted to talk because I was having whatever initial thought I was having, and I thought that was something worth talking about, and it was, but by and large, I almost feel like I had saved that energy for this moment, just because I feel like it would have been a better expenditure of it. But hey, you live, you learn, you get loves, all that kind of stuff. Diapers are great. And what? When did I even make that clip? I don't even remember. What time was it? I was on the road. So I guess it must have been around 1 or 2. I guess I had left. Oh, it was probably after that. Because I don't think I left the shelter where I had my break until like 2:30. So I guess it was closer to 3. So yeah, 3 hours later, I guess I went just about 9 more miles. And yeah, I'm camped on this trail that is not actually the Appalachian Trail, but it's a Blue Blaze trail that cuts off like a pretty sizable portion of the Appalachian Trail. I'll have to redo my math here soon enough and see just how many miles I've done compared to the real trail, because of this taking of what is called the Ribble Trail. And again, it's a pretty sizable. It's hard to tell what the scale is here. I guess I could do the math. Are you willing to wait? So, the Ribble Trail, the actual Appalachian Trail, 616.4. So this trail starts at mile 616.4 of the Appalachian Trail, and then the Appalachian Trail rejoins it on the other side at 624. So that's actually not too crazy. So yeah, that cuts off 7.5 miles of actual Appalachian Trail. And I don't really know how long the trail itself is. I can do some rough estimate, but it looks like it's approximately 2 miles. So yeah, so cuts off 5 miles by and large, but yeah. What else? Well, let me think. I talked about, okay, so after I did get beer, obviously, so I made it to Trent's Grocery, and even from a very far distance, I could see that there was a Hunt's Brothers Pizza sign. I could recognize it just as distinctly as a Starbucks Mermaid or a Golden Arch McDonald's. And so I had hope. I thought that Trent's Groceries was going to be sort of like Grant's Grocery in Bland that I had gone through. And so I can't remember if they had beer or wine, but I don't think that they did. And so I was a little bit nervous because I was like, man, I'm kind of putting my eggs all in one basket. Like I'm really, really, really hoping that they'll have beer and or wine. And once I got closer to the actual grocery store itself, I met another hiker, and I was surprised to see him. It was actually the guy who had gotten the campsite that I was aiming for last night. His name was Storm. Shout out to Storm. And he was, I don't know what he was doing, I guess getting food or something like that. And so he very quickly, we, had some pleasantries and, discussed what we were doing, where we were from, all that kind of stuff. And then he headed on. But right when I got to Trent's Grocery, the nice proprietor, shout out to the proprietor, she came out and gave me a breakfast biscuit, which anyone who knows me should know that breakfast is my favorite meal, and that breakfast sandwiches in particular are one of my favorite ways to consume that meal. And so she brought out like a really nice egg and sausage and cheese biscuit, and it was very, very nice. I was much pleased. I almost wanted to volunteer to do some grunt work just to pay her back for that, because I was like, wow, I'm not particularly hungry, but there's always room for breakfast, as they say. So I bought my beers, had a little look-see around, had a coffee, and then pressed on from there all the way to here. I listened to an Andrew Huberman episode today that was kind of interesting. I mean, I'm at the point now where Andrew Huberman kind of fills a hole that Joe Rogan used to fill, wherein, especially when I was working in a corporate environment, anytime Joe Rogan would release a podcast, which was I don't know, he does 3 a week or something like that. It's awesome. I take my hat off to him. But because of the work that I was doing, I would typically always at least start listening to any episode that he had released, just because it was possible that I would find it interesting. One of the great things about Joe is that, he makes so much content that eventually something hits, and he's got such a variety of interests that, from fighting, MMA style fighting, to hunting, to politics, to religion, to economics, environmentalism, spirituality. It's hard to say. It would be hard to define something that Joe Rogan is not interested in. In fact, I would actually be very interested in knowing what he said. If I were to ask him one question, I would like to ask more than one, but one interesting question would be what don't you want to talk about? Who are guests that you don't want to actually speak with? What topics do you not find interesting? Because it's such a wide variety. But when Joe Rogan went to Spotify, I pretty much stopped listening to him because I couldn't get his podcast anymore on the podcast app that I used. That has since changed. I don't know what they did, but just like with Instagram and Facebook, where the medium is the message. I'm not a big fan of Spotify or Pandora or any of those things, because I feel like they, it's not your music, I have always enjoyed the fact that the music that I listen to is all offline music. It's just stuff I've been collecting since I started listening to music. Shout out to Jesus Christ Superstar. Shout out to Andrew Lloyd Wright. And shout out to my mom. It's Holy Week. And yeah, I've always enjoyed that, I have my music and I have access to it at any given time in its entirety, in its completion. Out here, I've seen this before with other people on the Appalachian Trail, where you can't listen to music once you lose service. And also, if you're streaming music, I gotta think that's pretty intensive for your battery to process, at least more so than if it's just offline and on your phone. So yeah, what's my point? Andrew Huberman. Yeah, wow, that was a tangent among tangents, my dude. Man, I hate when you go for the last sip of a beer and the tab that was used to open the beer makes it so that it shunts the last little drips and you spill beer onto your face. But yeah, Andrew Huberman, he is now my surrogate Joe Rogan. And every episode that he releases, I'm like, well, this is possibly going to be interesting and at least worth listening to a little bit to determine whatever level of interest might be present. Time for a Miller Lite, a fine Pilsner. I actually think this is going to taste way better than that IPA. But let's see what's really going on here. Shout out to my dude Ben. Let's have a sip real quick. Yeah, that is astoundingly more tasty. I've got like a sweat bee that's making inquiries on my body. So Andrew Huberman, anytime he releases an episode, which is twice a week, I typically will listen to it, at least give it a shot. And today, it was about how, it was about sexual orientation and how basically, like, science tries to determine what the factors are that go into human sexuality. And let's see, what was the most interesting takeaway? I mean, they talked about this thing that they had done, an experiment with the relative finger length between your index finger and your ring finger. Men typically have their ring fingers longer than their index finger, and there's a ratio there that typically will determine, like, if you are basically, if I recall correctly, as a man with what is it, XY chromosomes, or is it XX? I don't even know. Basically, if your ring finger is longer than your index finger, then it means there's a greater chance that you're heterosexual. And so they went through for 2 hours or whatever it was, just talking about all the biological factors that determine human sexuality, from hands to gay rams, like sheep, like male sheep. Is a male sheep called a ram? I don't know. But like all these kind of like somewhat interesting, if somewhat lacking, like expositions of how human sexuality is nature and also nurture. There's also some finding that, like, if you have a certain amount of older brothers, you're more likely to be gay at a certain point. Anyway, the more older brothers you have, the more likely you are to be gay. Which this was interesting. Just in terms of pure theoretical musing, I wasn't completely convinced, because I thought, that sounds like a solution looking for a problem rather than something that actually explains reality. But the theory goes like this. It was, I think it was called androgen inoculation. So basically the thought was, if a woman gives birth to a boy, then the birthing process results in a lot of mixing of blood between the child and the mother. And when the mother's immune system encounters male androgens, it will view them, because androgens, basically, that means, male sex hormones. The mother's body will view them as foreign invaders, and it will create an immunological response where the mother's body will basically view them as pathogens. And so for subsequent male births that she might have, her body will basically attack the future children's androgen receptors, such that even though the babies are, in terms of biological sex, male, they will be less receptive to androgen hormones, and therefore possibly more likely to be gay. To me, that didn't really make sense. My biggest argument against that, which, I don't want to be graphic, but the thought that I had while listening to that, which I thought it was an interesting theory, because it was like, I could see a world in where that existed as an explanation, but I was thinking about it, when a man and a woman are in love and have adult times with one another, I thought, especially because birth occurs like in the same area that like the process of insemination occurs. I'm trying to be delicate. I thought, wouldn't her body already be exposed to a certain amount of androgens because of the male interactions that she would have, both from kissing and everything else that goes on with kissing? Like, I just was like, well, if that's true, and then you have to assume that the corollary is also true. Like, if a man is with a woman, like, does that mean that his body will have an immuno response to like female? What would you call those? Androgens are for men. Estrogens. It just seemed it was too simplistic. It didn't seem properly correct for me to think that was actually like a sweeping broad way for something like the occurrence of heterosexuality versus homosexuality. I don't know. Maybe this topic isn't the most charismatic, but in any case, I enjoyed listening to the episode for what it was worth, and I got what I got from it. And I make no apologies, but I hope that you can understand. I'm just doing the best I can out here. Just trying to get through it. Whatever you have to do to get through walking from Georgia to Maine, whether it's purely on the trail or not, it's valid, and it's just a response to trauma. So, what else? Well, I don't even know. The hostel that I would like to stay at tomorrow, apparently has somewhat recently changed hands in terms of ownership and is not officially open. So, it seems like it behooves me to actually call them. There's other options for staying in Parisburg. There's a hotel. There's at least 2 hotels, maybe even motels. Which that would not be my preference, because I think, if I recall correctly, Angel's Rest, which is where I would certainly prefer to stay, that you have access to like a full kitchen. Which, when I stay at hostels and stuff like that, one of my favorite things to do is to be able to make my own food, and to be able to have access to like pots and pans and stoves and things like that. So I need to give them a call tomorrow at some point. But my general thought, I was looking at the map earlier today, and it looks like there's a decent road walk that can be done from Woods Hole into Parisburg, if I can get the orientation here correctly. And yeah, it seems like it's certainly more direct, and beyond just being more direct, it's also something I've never done before. So that is something that is exciting. Alcohol allowed. I'm looking at the hostels in Parisburg. The Holy Family Hostel. It's a Catholic church-run hostel, open March through November. And alcohol allowed? Is it free to stay? It kind of seems like it is. I don't know. There's a lot of options. I mean, again, Angel's Rest is where I initially wanted to go just because I've had good experiences there in the past, but there is a motor lodge, a Plaza Motel. Yeah, I'm excited about all this. Dollar General, a Walmart, a library. Whew, I could learn a lot while I'm in this town. Parisburg indeed, my dude. But yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I also started listening to a new audiobook today. Two new audiobooks. Harry Potter and the was it the Deathly Hallows? No, it was Order of the Phoenix, and then also Carl Rogers on Becoming a Person. Pretty different books, but yeah, the Carl Rogers book is very, very dense and enjoyable, highly intellectually stimulating, and the Harry Potter book is just great. Listen, it's like hanging out with a friend. But yeah, my dude, I don't feel like I have much more to say, and that's okay. You know, like, again, whatever you have to do to get your way through, that's what you got to do. And for me, out here, getting vaguely bit by mosquitoes and my feet, man, I haven't taken a shower since Damascus, and certainly didn't have the most restful time in Damascus either. But when was that I was in Damascus? I think it was like, when was that? The 25th. Okay. Yeah, so Wednesday. And today's Monday. Tomorrow will be Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. I really enjoy logistics. Small victories, just like figuring out the best way to get what you need to get and do what you need to do to get from here to there. Like, I think that, if AI does everything that I want it to do and that I hope that it will do, I think that, like, just existing in this kind of a way would be a pretty fulfilling way to live life from time to time. Not necessarily forever, but it's a nice fallback. And so, with that, I think I'm going to fall back to my tent. I've got some pretty good materials for a very delicious dinner. And I think that the combination of dinner and Harry Potter and the last little sips and dregs of the beer that I have sound quite lovely. And you got to enjoy and embrace that which is lovely on whatever is, what is that thing? If I can find this, I would love to end this episode with what Christopher Hitchens said at his father's funeral, which was a Bible verse. Let's see if I can find it, because it's a really good verse, and he talks about it a lot in his writings and in his debates. Philippians 4:8. Okay, let's see. Philippines, that's close enough. 4:8. I'm sure Google will help me. If Google can do anything, it can help me there. Here we go. Excuse me. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Absolutely. 100%. Love you. Bye.